StrayAllDay.com.
Now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves anyone out there, especially yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together in one bundle, one book, one mindset, one framework, a bunch of frameworks inside of that framework, and one university that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is acceptance versus tolerance. And yes, these are two different things. If you thought they were the same, you are wrong. And today I'm going to tell you why. The acceptance and tolerance are two completely different things. Not completely different, but they are different. And I'm going to explain to you what the difference is between them and how you can utilize each strategically in your life. This is a key concept that everybody should understand, especially with the toxic climate that we may sometimes be presented with in certain pockets of the world and on certain subjects that I think anyone here can, looking at your own life, you can think of whatever subjects where things kind of become toxic, where a conversation, you got to be careful even getting into a conversation because you never know who might be listening and how they might be feeling until they start speaking on it. So this subject of acceptance versus tolerance is really important with that, and especially with the world that we're in now and on any type of internet platform. And I'm bringing up the internet because everybody who's listening to this has some type of internet access to be listening to me right now. Today is about getting clear on what exists, which is the things that you accept, versus what persists, which are the things that you tolerate. And I'm going to go in depth into what I mean with that as we get into this. So let's get right to it. Point number one, the topic once again is acceptance versus tolerance. Number one, let's talk about acceptance. My definition of acceptance, this is not out of the dictionary, this is out of the Work on Your Game dictionary. My definition of acceptance is your understanding that you do not control 99% of circumstances. You do not control 99% of circumstances, meaning things will happen. People will say and do things that are unexpected and even unwanted in your life. Acceptance is knowing this and being wise enough to not try to fight against that. That's what acceptance means. Things are going to happen. 99% of things that happen, you do not control. That includes people. Acceptance is just knowing that that's how it's going to be, and having the wisdom to not try to fight it. Don't try to fight the current. All right, don't try to stop. There's a wave coming in the ocean. You're in the ocean, you see a big wave coming. You don't try to stand up and block the wave from being a wave. No, you either get the hell out the way, you duck under the wave, or you pick up your surfboard and you ride the wave, or you hope to survive the wave, but you don't try to block the wave from happening. If you see it's gonna rain, you don't try to stop the clouds from letting the rain out. You either go in the house or you grab an umbrella, or you go somewhere and cover for shelter, right? So you don't get wet, or you stay outside and you get wet, but you don't try to fight it and stop it from happening. 99% of things in life, you need to deal with this way. I mean, this is what the serenity prayer says, right? Grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change. 99% of things are things that you cannot change. I accept the weather. So if it's windy today in Miami when I'm recording. So I got all the windows and doors closed so you don't hear any of the wind while I'm recording right now. But it's kind of a breezy day. It's a little bit cool out here in Miami. It's not the normal Miami weather. We get about a month or two of this every year. And cool by cool, I mean like mid to low 70s. I accept that some people are lazy and they don't read and they don't think. And some of the things that I say on this show to some people is going to go over their heads. Those people are not listening anymore. They listen to about the first 30 seconds. And then when they hear what I'm talking about, they're like, okay, this is absolutely not for me. So I'm not talking to them right now. Okay. But some people are lazy. Some people don't read. Some people don't think. These are three things I told you about human beings. Actually, most people are lazy, don't read, and don't think. That's not some people. It's most people. But this show ain't for most people. I accept that not everybody's going to agree with everything that I say. Even some of you who are listening to me right now. I accept that when I publish content on the internet, it's going to invite commentary. All right. Some of that commentary will be things that I don't like. I accept that every time I get on a plane and that plane takes off, because I do not know how to fly or land a plane, that I have zero control over what happens between the takeoff and the landing. Because every time I get on a plane, when the plane takes off, I got to stop looking at my phone. I got to stop looking at my tablet or my book. I can't read while the plane is taking off because it gives me a little bit of that dizziness, like that motion sickness. You know what I'm talking about? So when the plane's taking off, I just look out the window. I usually get a window seat. I just look straight ahead, and I go into a meditative mode because I know that I have zero control over what happens between that moment that plane leaves the ground and the time it actually lands, and hopefully it does land. I have no control whatsoever. I am completely giving up control in that period, that 2 hours, that 30 minutes, that 5 hours, 10 hours, however long it takes for that plane to get to wherever it's getting to. I have no control whatsoever. I accept that. Acceptance is a Zen meditative energy that I think many of us who are listening to this right now could benefit from having a little bit more of. That Zen meditative energy of just knowing, okay, I can't stop this. I can't change it. I can't force it. And that it could be, again, a person, place, or thing. Let me just allow it to be what it is and focus on the 1% of life which I do have control over, which we're going to get to in a moment. Let's move on to point number 2. The topic, once again, is acceptance versus tolerance. Now, let's get into what tolerance is. Definition. Now, this one I did grab from the dictionary. It is the capacity to endure continued subjection to something, especially a drug, transplant, antigen, or environmental conditions without adverse reaction. So let's put that into work on your game terms. Let me call it layman's terms. Let's say work on your game terms. Tolerance is allowing something to exist and perpetuate with your tacit approval. Tolerance means letting it be, allowing something to be. Acceptance is recognizing that something is being. Tolerance is letting something be. Do you understand that is a small difference, but is a huge difference? Simply stated, while a situation continues as it is, tolerance means not doing anything and just letting it keep going. All right, this is the situation. You see what it is. You could do something, but you allow it to keep going. You let it stay the way that it is. Tolerance is staying at a job that maybe you love it because you love the job, so you stay at the job. You allow yourself to keep working there. Maybe it's you staying at a job that you hate because you just need that check. You allow yourself to keep working there. Either way, whether you love it or hate it, tolerance is you allow that situation or whatever it is to perpetuate in that space that you're in. It could be a negative thing, depending on how you look at it. It could not. It could be a good thing. All right, if you don't like to cut the grass, but knowing that you like the big house that you live in, you deal with it. Either you pay the landscaper or you learn how to work a lawnmower and some hedge clippers, right? Is you maybe not liking to practice basketball, like we talking about practice, but since you like playing in the games, you tolerate going to practice every single day. So tolerance is about you knowing what the situation is, knowing how it works, knowing the way that things go, and you saying, okay, I am going to, saying to yourself or even saying out loud, I want to let this continue, or I'm going to do things to cause it to continue. So if you keep going, if you like having big muscles, you tolerate the fact that you got those big muscles and you're going to need maybe to take a protein shake and you got to eat 5 small meals a day and you got to walk around with a big gallon jug of water with you everywhere that you go. You accept that. You accept that as part of the deal for you keeping big muscles. You're going to have to tolerate taking that protein powder and eating those extra meals and drinking all that water and going to the gym, 8 times a week, whatever it's going to be. So acceptance and tolerance can work together. Accepting that if you want this thing to perpetuate, if you want this situation to continue, there are certain things you're going to have to tolerate. Right? Everyone understands that. If you accept the fact that if you decide to have a child and raise a kid, then you must tolerate the fact that for the first X number of years of that child's life, you are 100% responsible for what happens with that child because they can't take care of themselves. They can't do anything for themselves. They can't feed themselves. They can't go to the bathroom for themselves. They can't speak for themselves. They can think, but they can't really make decisions for themselves. You are 100% responsible for not only yourself, but also that human being. You accept that if you decide to have a child, you know that that's the deal, or you know that that's part of the game, and you're going to have to tolerate the extra work that you have to do because now you're working not only for taking care of yourself. I mean, you got to take yourself to the bathroom. You got to feed yourself. You got to make sure you bathe yourself. You got to make sure if there's a problem with you, you got to do something for you, but now you got to do it for another person. Now, instead of working for one person, your work is doubled, you're working for two. But you're willing to tolerate that because that's what you wanted to do. And we're going to be talking about that in a future episode of this show. What things are you willing to tolerate in order to get to where you want to go? Because there are things you must tolerate to get to where you want to go in any area of life that's worth getting to. There's nowhere in life that's worth getting to where you will not need to tolerate some things that you may not enjoy, you may not be super excited about, but you have to tolerate them in order to get to where you want to get to. And if you're not willing to tolerate them, or you try to shortcut the process will shortcut you. Again, that's a future masterclass that we're going to be talking about that thing. So it's not necessarily a bad thing that you have to, or that you get to, depending on the way that you look at it, tolerate certain things in life. The challenge is a lot of people kind of get this whole equation backwards. So let's talk about that as we move on to. Actually, let me talk a little bit more about point number 2. We'll move on to point number 3, and I'll explain more of what I just said in a minute. All right. If you hate a certain aspect of what you have going on, for example, you like having big muscles and you like looking good on the beach with no shirt on or in your two-piece bikini, you might hate the fact that you had to go to the gym. All right. You love the fact that you look good, but you might hate going to the gym. You might hate your personal trainer. You might hate doing those boot camp classes. You might hate not being able to eat an extra piece of chocolate cake. You might hate having to get up at 5 a.m. to go work out before you go to work every single day. There are certain things you might hate about the process, but you love the result that you're getting, then you're willing to tolerate it to get the outcome. The question is, which one do you like more? Which one is stronger, rather, is a better question. Which one is stronger, your love for the result or your hate of the process? Because if your hate of the process is stronger than your love for the result, then you probably will sacrifice those results because of your hate of the process. But if your love of the result is stronger, then you're willing to deal with the process, even though you hate it, even though you don't like it, in order to get to what you want to get to. There are some athletes out there who are great performers at their sport, but they hate training. All right? They hate having to do all the extra work. They hate having to eat so many calories every single day. They hate dealing with their teammates. They hate the opponents that they had to play against. They hate everything other than getting the trophy at the end of the season. Like, they hate the games. They hate the practices. They hate the travel. They hate the fanfare. They hate everything that comes with it, but they love getting that trophy at the end. If you love getting the trophy enough, you're willing to do everything in between in order to get to it. And there's some people who love that whole process in order to get to that trophy. Either way, if you want to get into this game, and this could be anything in life, you want to get into this game, here's a list of things you're going to have to tolerate. Anyone who's listening to me right now, look at your profession. Look at what you do right now on a day-to-day basis, full time. What are the lists? If someone was getting into what you do, if someone decided they wanted to do the same thing that you do, could you right now, just off the top of your head, make a list of all the things they would have to tolerate if they wanted to do what you do? If they want to get the results that you're getting, they want to get the check that you get every 2 weeks, or if they want to have the results that you have, looking at your life and looking at the way that you think and looking at your intelligence and the things that you've acquired. And if it's about fitness, looking at your body. If it's about intelligence, looking at your mind. Maybe it's a combination of both. But if someone wants the results that you have right now in life, can you make a list of the things that they would have to tolerate in order to get it? Everyone who's listening to me right now can answer that with a resounding yes. And I'm telling you that to tell you this: there is no area of life in which you can achieve anything of significance without a list of things that must be tolerated. If you want to own a car, tolerate that you're going to have to take that car to the shop every now and then to get some work done on it. Maybe it's just an oil change and a tune-up. Maybe the engine is not sounding right. Maybe you got one of the warning lights coming on and you got to go get it checked out. Maybe you get a blown tire and now you got to replace it. Maybe, who knows, you get dented up somewhere, somebody bumped into you. Maybe you scratched it up against something and you got to take it to a body shop and get a whole new paint job. Understand that if you're going to own a car, then there's certain things that you're going to have to tolerate. Anyone who's listening to me who's in a relationship, there are certain things you're going to have to tolerate dealing with that other human being. Right? No matter how great the relationship is, there are some things you're going to have to tolerate. We already talked about having a child. There are things you have to tolerate. If you want to have a daily podcast, there are things you got to tolerate, like coming up with the content consistently. All right, not falling off the wagon when it comes to making sure your content is coming out consistently. Making sure you're coming up with new ideas and new material consistently. Making sure that it's getting put out there into the RSS feeds, into your hosts, and is getting aggregated to all the platforms that put the shows out. These are all things that you have to tolerate. Maybe there are things you get to tolerate. Maybe you love it. Maybe you hate it. But if you want the result, then there are certain things you got to deal with. Now, if you want to live in a place like Miami, Florida, you got to tolerate the humidity. Again, I said maybe 2 months a year, we don't have much humidity. Right now, there's very little humidity in Miami. I'm recording this in November. So it's very little humidity right now, but who knows? It might come right back in a week. It might come right back in 2 months. It's going to be humid all over again. If you can't deal with humidity, you probably, if you don't want to tolerate humidity, that's a better way of saying it, because it exists here. When you're here, you must accept it. But if you don't want to tolerate it, then you can live somewhere else. Right? This is just the way that it works. In life, there's always something that must be tolerated. Point number 3. Topic here today is acceptance versus tolerance, understanding the difference. Here's the key. You can be accepting while choosing not to tolerate. You can be accepting while choosing not to tolerate. I worked at McDonald's when I was a senior in high school, and I accepted the job as it was. My job for the most part when I worked there was I was in the back, like as a cook. So if someone ordered a cheeseburger, there was a certain process that we followed to get the cheeseburger in there. You put the hamburger buns into the bun warmer, then it popped out 3 seconds later, and you put it on the paper. And we had an assembly line basically. The first person would put 1 squeeze of ketchup, 1 squeeze of mustard on the bun, and then you would slide it along down the line, and then the next person would do the next thing. That would usually be, let me see if I can remember. They would put a couple pickles, like 2 pickles, and let's say it's a cheeseburger and a slice of cheese. Then you would slide it down the line, and the next person would put, I don't know if you put onions on the cheeseburger. I think maybe some onions on the cheeseburger, maybe a slice of lettuce. Then you slide it down the line, and the next person will pull the meat patty. They called it red meat, or reg meat or red meat. I don't know which one it was. They would pull that out the warmer, slap that onto the bun. Then there was a certain way that we wrapped it. You put a little sticker on it so it stayed closed. Then we would slide it into the food warmer. And then the people on the front line, that's the people that take the orders, the register people, they would grab it out, they would drop it into the bag, and they would put everything else in there. And that was the whole process that was being followed. I accepted that process. I accepted I would be doing that for 8 hours per shift every time I came to work at McDonald's. Or maybe I get some variety. I get to work the fry machine. But usually the fries are people on the front line. Or maybe I get to work the grill, and that's where you use the clamshell cooker, and you throw the meat down, and it would cook for like 30 seconds, and then it'd be done, and then you put it into the warmer so it'd be ready for the next burger to be ordered. Or maybe I'd be working the fryer. That's where we make the filet of fish, and who knows what other sandwiches McDonald's got going on. But that was pretty much the whole thing. The whole setup in the back was probably maybe 6 feet by 10 feet wide, and it might be 3 or 4 people back there working, maybe 5 people working back there, and this is 8 hours a day. Every time I came in, I accepted that this was the job if I was going to work at McDonald's. When it got to the point that I was no longer willing to tolerate doing that, I quit. Simple as that. That's how it works. You can accept things as they are. When you don't want to, well, I still accept that McDonald's pretty much works the same way these days. I don't eat at McDonald's, but if I walk past a McDonald's and I peeked into the back, it looks pretty much the same. When I go somewhere like Shake Shack, that is a place I do get food, and I see them back there working, the people on the back lines, and they got more people working in a Shake Shack, looks like on a day-to-day basis than McDonald's normally did. But when I see them back there, it looks like they're pretty much doing the same thing. It's an assembly line type operation, and that's the way they're able to get the food done so quickly. They're not as fast as McDonald's. Shake Shack is actually a little bit slow, but they don't build themselves as fast food, so I understand. But the whole point is this. When I accept that McDonald's works the way that they work. So if I'm going to work there, I got to tolerate being in that process, because the process is not going to change because I decide I want to do something different unless I buy the company. So you can be accepting while choosing not to tolerate. When I didn't want to tolerate doing it anymore, I left McDonald's. I accept that when I publish something on the internet that people can comment on it, but I don't have to tolerate anybody's presence if I don't like what they're saying. It doesn't matter what they said or why they said it or anybody's justification for it. If I don't like it, I don't have to tolerate it. That's why we have the remove button, the delete button, and the block button. That's the reason why they exist, because you don't have to tolerate somebody else saying something, no matter who they are, why they said it, or how they justify it. I can accept that if I'm in a relationship and my partner is mentally abusive or physically abusive, I can accept that that's who they are as a person. I don't have to tolerate it by staying in a relationship. I can accept that I wanted to go outside and have a picnic, but today is a rainy day. I accept that the rain interrupted my plan, but while accepting it, I don't have to tolerate getting wet. I can either keep my ass in the house, or I can carry an umbrella, or I can get a gazebo or something so I stay dry. Understand the difference between what you must accept and what you choose to tolerate. This is a key sentence. Understand the difference between what you must accept. I mean, you don't have a choice when it comes to accepting things as they are, and what you choose to tolerate. When you tolerate something, you have a choice. You have an option. If you're allowing something to perpetuate, you have chosen. The key word is allow. When you allow something, that means you also have the power to do something about it and not allow. A lot of people live life having this whole equation backwards. Meaning, many people, check this out, choose what to accept and then complain about the things that they don't want to accept. So there are certain things that are just in place and they're going to be how they are. And some people complain about them because they feel that they have the choice as to whether or not to accept them. All right, this is not going to work. This is, like I've talked about, equality, and the fact that inequality will always exist because human beings are different. People make different decisions, and people do different things, and not everybody is given the same set of circumstances. So of course things are going to be unequal in life, but then people complain about inequality as if complaining about it is going to change it. No, they got it wrong. They have the equation wrong. They are speaking as if they get to choose whether to accept inequality or not. What the fact is, you must accept it. Now, you can complain about it, doesn't mean it's going to change. And if I get proven wrong, then somebody can show me and let me know. So this is half of how people get it backwards. They choose what to accept and complain about what they refuse to accept, which is an idiotic way of doing things because they will always be complaining. You're setting yourself up for a lifetime job of bitching. And there's the other way that people mess up the acceptance tolerance equation. People act as if they must tolerate things that could be changed with just a little bit of personal initiative. There's certain things that you could change, but if you're allowing them to perpetuate in your life and you're not doing anything about it, then okay, you're just gonna be stuck in that situation. The old fable or anecdote is a man walked up to a porch where he saw an old man sitting in his rocking chair, and there was a dog laying there next to the old man. But the dog was wailing and making these noises and like these sounds of pain. And the man who walked up looked at the old man and looked at the dog and said, "Hey, do you notice that this dog is wailing in pain?" And the old man in the rocking chair said, "Yes, I do notice that." And the man who walked up said, "Well, why is the dog wailing?" He said, "Because the dog is sitting on a rusty nail." And the man who walked up said, "Well, why doesn't he just move?" And the man in the rocking chair said, "I don't know." He won't move. The dog was acting as if it must tolerate the nail sticking in its ass instead of just taking the option that it could choose to move and stop tolerating having that rusty nail sticking into his body. The point is this: a lot of people get it backwards. All right, there are certain things that you must accept that some people are acting as if they can choose, and certain things that you can choose to tolerate. Some people are acting as if they must just let it be. It's not the way it works. You got the equation backwards, but that's why I'm here to help clarify things for you. So let's recap today's class, which is acceptance versus tolerance. It's a key concept everyone should understand, and it's about getting clear on what exists. These are the things that you accept versus what persists. These are the things that you tolerate. Point number one, my definition of acceptance is understanding that you do not control 99% of circumstances. Know this and be wise enough to not fight against things that you do not have control over. I accept that some people are lazy. I accept the weather. I accept that not everybody's going to agree with me. And I accept every time I take off in an airplane, that the airplane takes off and I'm in it, that I have zero control over what happens between the point that it takes off and the point that lands. Acceptance is a Zen meditative energy. Number two, tolerance. Definition of tolerance is the capacity to endure continued subjugation to something without adverse reaction. My definition is allowing something to exist and perpetuate with your tacit approval. Simply put, not doing something while a situation continues as is the definition of tolerance. And sometimes we tolerate things because we like them. I tolerate that there is work that goes into putting this show out every single day. I tolerate that. All right? It's not a negative thing. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with me. I want to tolerate it because I enjoy it. I tolerate that I have to go to the gym and lift weights in order to keep my physique in the shape that I want it to be in. That's something that I'm willing to tolerate. So there may be things that you are willing to tolerate and you like, and there may be some things that you don't actually like, but you're willing to tolerate them anyway. You might not like cutting the grass, you might not like paying a landscaper, but you have this huge house and you like that it looks good, so you're willing to tolerate the expenses or the effort that comes with it. Point number 3, key thing is you can be accepting while choosing not to tolerate. I accept that somebody can comment on my material. Anybody can comment on my material. All my profiles are public. I don't have to tolerate their presence. That's why we got the block button and we can get rid of them. You can accept that somebody is a negative, abusive person, but you don't have to tolerate staying around them and hanging around them all the time. I can accept that it's a rainy day outside, but I don't have to tolerate getting wet. Know the difference between what you must accept and what you choose to tolerate. Many people have it backwards. They choose what to accept and complain about everything else. Then they act as if they must tolerate things that they would have the power to change if they would just execute just a little bit of personal initiative. All this said, if you are ready to really get down to the disciplines of taking the things that you want to achieve in life, the outcomes you want to get to, knowing that you're willing to work hard, how about we answer the most key question, which is who do you need to be as a person? Because who you are being as a person is more important than what you're doing. Once you get the being part down, and acceptance versus tolerance is part of that, this framework that I just shared with you here today. Once you get the being part down, the doing will take care of itself, and the actions will produce the results. We're going to create a strategy, first of all, for who you're being as a person, then a strategy for how you're going to execute on those actions to get you to the results you want. We do all of that at Work on Your Game University. So join us there at workonyourgameuniversity.com. We out of here. Dre, all